We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Saxophone! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
So, Trent.
So, Parth, riddle me this, riddle me that. What have you been eating?
A big black bat.
Parth, it's the Batman week.
It is. It's, I don't know if this is a shock to the listeners. It's a little bit of a shock to us. This is a super recent development, but we'll just get at what we've been eating out of the way, because we've got a pretty awesome interview. Right?
Timely, even, on the weekend that it was released. That's just an interesting coincidence.
But so that you know, right now I'm at friend of the show, Sophia Alexis's college house.
I know that because her Wi-Fi was bad and it almost jeopardized her interview.
Sabotaged an interview.
Yeah.
Shout out to friend off the show, Shane Matey. He gave me his room, which has much better connection.
But our guest, William Hoy, the editor of the film, joked that it would be hard for you to sustain your relationship going forward given that your spouse has bad internet connectivity. And I was like, this is going to be a good interview. This guy can hang.
Yeah. But to answer the question, Sophia and I made chocolate chip pancakes as like a brunch type deal.
It's very like Norman Rockwell of you.
I know. And they were delicious. How about you, Trent?
I just ate a clementine. You watched me do it. I did my famous thing. Parth, I haven't eaten anything. You said, go eat something so you can talk about it. So what was the word you said? So I wouldn't be intellectually bankrupt on the show?
Something about your integrity. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just said, I'll just drink this glass of water. And you said, that's not enough.
No. Well, it's not what have you been drinking? If that's what it was, then that would have been fine. But this is craft services, damn it.
Yeah.
So what have you been eating?
You are right. Well, should we talk about the movie of the week this week on our show?
I think it's time we should just get straight into it, because I think the listeners are excited.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say William Hoy edited the shit out of this movie. And let's talk about it with him.
I'm going to edit the shit into this intro. Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture. This week, we have a big catch, folks.
Big catch. Big fish.
Big movie.
Yeah.
Big bat.
A big blockbuster. The Big Black Bat.
It's The Batman, Matt Reeves' movie. We were able to secure William Hoy, the editor.
We secured him, all right.
We always say this, but this time, sometimes it's more hyperbole, sometimes it's less hyperbole. But this is one of our better interviews, is it not?
No, it was. Like I said off air that it revitalized my lust for life in terms of, breathing air, doing the pod, going from day to day life. William Hoy sparked me, and like the Riddler, Gotham's a powder keg and Riddler's the match,
Yeah.
So I guess I'm Gotham and William Hoy is the Riddler in this scenario. Parth, we were just...
Everything burns.
Everything burns, Parth. Parth, we were just off air on the secret Batman website. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, why don't we... Oh, wait, was that off air that he told us about that?
That was off air.
Why don't we play the interview and then talk about that at the end? But just to tease some goodies.
Should everyone have seen the Batman? Isn't there a spoiler around the 20-minute mark or something?
There's a mild spoiler warning. We don't really give any. If you haven't seen the movie, I think you can rest easy. All we do is we kind of mention an action sequence that is featured pretty prominently in trailers.
I think if you haven't seen the movie, you could still listen to this.
Yeah, I think so too. There's really no plot points. There's no scenes. There's just one action sequence, again, that's been prominently displayed. And even then, not much about it, just the process of making it, I guess.
But intentionally, we avoided key points, spoilers even.
Yeah, but if you want to go in completely blind as a bat, if you will,
go see it at your nearest theater, hopefully on a big old screen. Parth and I saw on IMAX. Parth just saw it for a second time last night. It was dope.
Yeah, no, just to tease out some stuff he talks about. He talks about why Carmine Falcone's name is pronounced that way. He talks about how the movie changed over the course of COVID. He talks about how he works with Michael Giacchino, the composer, and with Matt Reeves, the director. There's a lot of stuff, I think, if you're a fan.
Yeah. He edited the whole movie. Well, he
co-edited. He talks about that too.
Yes. And it was super cool. You should listen. Seems like you're already here. Seems like you're well underway to listening. So
we're on to like minute 7 of recording for this intro, and I think we should just let him
listen. So let's just let the listening begin. Just keep those ears open.
All right, everybody. Cue the interview. Please enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our interview with William Hoy. He's the editor that's worked on such films as Dances with Wolves, Watchmen, and War for the Planet of the Apes. He's also edited Matt Reeves' The Batman, which opens this weekend. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So just to start off, talk about how you got involved with filmmaking and more specifically with film editing.
I guess it goes back to Robert Altman days is where we started. When I say we, my sister started out as an actress, and she was in a movie that shot in Vancouver, where I'm from. The movie was McCabe, Mrs. Miller. And so my sister had a role in that, and then followed Robert Altman, or was invited by Robert Altman to come down to Los Angeles and continue her career. And in those days, Robert Altman operated kind of like a repertoire company that if you weren't acting, then you were doing research. And if you weren't doing research, if it was after production, then maybe you were doing post-production. So, and I was going to film school, whatever film school we had in Vancouver at the time, just trying to learn something about filmmaking. And there wasn't any films being shot in Vancouver in those days. I mean, right now it's completely different scene that it is, in the day that when I left Vancouver. So there was nothing going on up there. So my sister said, why don't you come down here and, if you want to continue your education, or if you want just see what's going on down here, because, this is where they make film if you want to get in film. So Robert Altman had a company called Lionsgate, not to be mistaken with the Lionsgate that exists now, but he had a company. His company took movies from the very beginning, from research, development, all the way to post-production. So, there was a crew for all of that. So I happened to walk in on a movie called Three Women, and the editors, I'd go there for lunch, and they would see me all the time. And at some point, the head of post-production there said, would you like to come and work for us? And I go, oh, yeah. So that's how I got into editorial. I think there's a lot of people that say, I want to be a director, I want to be a producer, I want to be a writer, because that's where all the creative input's happening. But I quickly realized that as an editor, there's a lot of creative input. So I started there as an apprentice, an assistant, and was lucky enough to move up, continue being an editor, and that's kind of how my career transpired.
And can you explain how you became involved with Matt Reeves? Because before The Batman, you worked on some of the Planet of the Apes movies.
Yes, that's right.
I don't know if it went back even further than that.
No. I met Matt on Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So, a lot of times for people who work in the film industry, it's this kind of synergy, I guess is the word, that things come together. I had worked at Fox on a Fox 20th Century Fox, as it was. I worked there on a few pictures, so the people there knew me. Also, the producer of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Dylan Clark, he knew me from a Zack Snyder movie, Dawn of the Dead, because the studio, Universal at the time, asked me to come in to help out on that picture because the picture wasn't going very well at that point. The studio had seen it and it wasn't going very well. So I knew Dylan from that. So through all that, through Fox and Dylan got me the interview with Matt Reeves because he was looking for an editor who had visual effects background. And so I went in and met Matt, and that's kind of how our relationship started.
So to sort of expand on your relationship, what's your guys' process like?
Well, it certainly evolved from the very first day that we met. Obviously, we started working together because Matt's he's a very meticulous director, and I guess you could say that for a lot of directors, but he wants to go through the movie step by step, and that's how he goes through it. So in working with him, then you have to kind of establish a certain trust that what you're putting together, that you've actually gone through the dailies and looked for the best performance, and not only that the scene has form and structure to it that kind of tells a story that he wants to. So it's that trust that you have to build with any director. So that takes a while because there's so many ways you can put together a scene, a movie, and so that's all left to interpretation, or it's left to your director is trying to direct it, put it in a certain direction. So I believe that our working relationship didn't really become a solid working relationship until we had to solve a problem within the first movie, which was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and that was the attack on the human outpost, because that scene wasn't working, and so with knowing some visual effects background, having some visual effects background, knowing that we can manufacture different things is where he and I reimagined that scene, and it stands the way that we reimagine it now. But it took he and I sitting in a room and just working that out. So it basically was rewritten and reconceived, and so then he realized that we're kind of on the same page with a lot of things. So that's the kind of trust I believe you have to build with a director, so that on War it was easier, so that I felt more free to put scenes together, and then on this one even further than that. So, and now it's evolved into a full-blown friendship, because you can't help but when you work together that many hours that you get to know his family, and you get to know his ups and downs during the day and mine and all that kind of stuff. So because we're in a cutting room for hours and hours at a time, so it's now it's trust and friendship. So it was a pleasure to work on this one for sure.
This one being the Batman.
This one, the Batman.
So we just wanted to know, when did you know that this is your next movie, your next project?
You know what? When we were finishing War for the Planet of the Apes, and we still had months to go on it, and I knew that he was taking some interviews. We were just too busy to talk about what was going on, but he was taking interviews with Warner Brothers, and they wanted him to do the Batman, and they had a script. I think you might know that
the Ben Affleck script.
Ben Affleck was involved at that point. He read the script, and it's documented in interviews from him. And he also told me that he said, "Look, I know, I read the script, and that's one way to go. And but this just it's not something that I can do. I have to do it my way. I need to. It's not something that I can put my heart and soul into, because it's not something that I would do." And so the studio says, "So what would you do?" So he pitched them this story, he pitched them this idea, and the studio goes, "Oh, okay, do that." So, and then he had to write it. So at the end of war, he knew that I had been approached to do other projects and a quite long-term project that would take me out of my schedule with him. And he said that, "Oh, don't do that. Come and do the Batman with me because, I want you to do the Batman." And I went, "Okay, well, that's a Batman I want to see. So yes, I'll make myself available for that." So that's how I ended up on the Batman.
Because you make yourself available for the Batman.
Yeah.
And how early?
That actually sounds kind of funny.
No, like no matter what's going on, you make yourself available.
Yes, right. Sure.
So how early on, like, did you start getting footage, and like, I would imagine you were under lock and key this whole time.
Well, Matt started pre-production sometime in 2019. I would say it was like September. He left for London, so he's in London, and I usually start a project about. I like to get in there at least a week before production begins, before they start shooting, so I can set up the cutting room, make sure the pipeline for dailies and everything, so that from the first day that they start shooting, I'm seeing dailies and everything is running smoothly. So I actually left for London, I think it was like January 19th of 2020. So then, I'm there in London and he's shooting. We get about a quarter of the movie shot, and then COVID happens and they shut down the production. So then I fly home March 17th. So flew home not knowing if the production was going to continue, because you probably remember in those early days of COVID, nobody knew what's going on. I mean, you could look out in the street and people would be dropping dead. You didn't know. Nobody knew. I think it's a little in our rearview mirror now, but so I came home, and I, like a lot of people, just sat and did a lot of binge watching TVs and read a lot of books, by the way. So I don't have an opportunity to do that very often. But at some point, obviously, I'm communicating with Matt all the way through this, and he's continuing to work on previs, and he's continuing to work on certain scenes. And actually, COVID actually gave him an opportunity to put more time in pre-production of the Batmobile chase, because that was a little lacking in prep, because once the movie starts rolling, there's so many things going on. He's go, we'll take care of that later. It's never going to happen. So the break in between gave him an opportunity to revisualize that whole Batmobile chase. So that was one of the pluses that came out of COVID, if you can think any plus came out of COVID. So, but then we didn't start up again. So what happened was we get the notice that they're going to start shooting again sometime late August. So that's when they moved these Abbotts into my house and the other editor's house, and my assistant, who's here in LA. And plus, we're continuing to keep the UK assistants, and they're doing the daily. So I think a year or two ago, without COVID, I don't think the studios would have ever allowed us to work from home remotely on a picture of this size with such important intellectual property that piracy is crazy. I mean,
so you don't want to be the guy that leaked the Batman.
Absolutely not. You don't want any image to leak out. So
it's kind of amazing that there wasn't a breach, like given all the breaches in like the new Spider-Man per se.
Right.
Like this was airtight.
Right. So I mean, it's because it's our crew. We take every precaution. When things go out, there's a certain protocol that you have to go through. But they put in a firewall here in my house, and and the dailies were shipped. So I believe everything was encrypted. So it wasn't that they didn't take precautions. We took every precaution, and but it allowed us to work from home, and which I've fought for years. I just thought, I don't want to get up and walk to the other room and start cutting. That just sounds like a drag to me. But it wasn't so bad. I have dinner with my wife at about 6:30 and go back to work. Whereas if I'm at work, there's no chance of that.
Right.
Our hours are insane sometimes, So you're like, dinner, forget about that. We'll get home and whatever, 11, midnight, after working full day. So then we started up again in August working here, and they start shooting. And as soon as they start shooting, Robert Pattinson got COVID. So we had to shut down again. So we shut down, and the meantime, now all the systems are up. So we kept on going, and then finally we moved back to Warner Brothers in February of 2021, and so we set up the cutting rooms there, and they had very strict COVID protocols. You couldn't have more than 2 people in the room. They had to be wearing a mask. The building we moved into is one of the big editorial buildings. There was nobody in there. It was really spooky, really weird. That there was nobody on the lot because all the people in the office, all the executives, they were in Hawaii or somewhere. I don't know where they were, but they were. There was nobody on the lot, so it was just a strange time. But we set up our rooms, and we're all in our separate rooms, and we set up Matt, our director's room, separately, and set up his monitors so that he could see exactly what I'm seeing in my room. So that all worked out. So when Matt was done shooting, he came in, we showed him the picture. And so that's kind of the timeline of what happened and how we ended up in the cutting rooms.
You mentioned that there was another editor, I believe it was Tyler Nelson.
Tyler Nelson, yes.
So how was work divvied up? Were you both working on scenes? Were you just given different scenes?
Yeah, well, when dailies would come in, I would work on one scene, and then if I'm occupied, then he would take another scene. So in some cases we kind of overlapped, and so, but I put the movie together, and, we had talked about the fact that everything has to kind of come through my system because I actually mix the music and the sound effects and all those different things just for any kind of screening. And so I did that for Matt, for his screening, because we have the tools, and in the day of film, you don't have multi-tracks of sound effects and multi-tracks of music that are overlapping, and it's just a very difficult thing to do. So everything has to come through my machine. So then I mix it, and then we showed it to Matt. So, but any scenes that he's cut, if it's not including in this particular version, I said, Tyler, you should show it to Matt if there's ideas in there that he likes. And I do the same thing with any scene that I've cut that's not in there. So we did overlap, but ultimately what happens is once we start working with Matt comes in, and he's, like I said, he's very meticulous. He's going to go through from point A, B, C down the line. He's going to go through all the dailies and make sure that he's got what he set out to get in his performances with the actors, and then with the scenes that need visual effects. We talk about that. So we go through the movie step by step. It's a process for sure.
So since you've spent more time with this movie than, say, most of the people on Earth, in the edit, was there any scene in particular that was particularly difficult or satisfying to get right, or that the payoff was really nice?
Well, I mean, there's a few things. I mean, I say
we can put a mild spoiler warning for.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's say the difficult scenes. Well, let's pick one is the Batmobile chase. Mm-hmm. Because they tried to previs some of that, they storyboarded some of that, but like I said, it was one of the things that was re-envisioned during COVID. So that was shot over many days, over a long period. So we had little bits and pieces coming in at a time. It wasn't like, oh, we shot for 3 weeks and here's the Batmobile chase, put it together. So we would get a close-up of Batman. We get a close-up of Penguin. We get, one day we'd get the Batmobile coming around the corner with the tires and the water splashing in our face. And not only that, there's certain shots. I mean, there's shots in there that are all CG, but there's shots in there that are very subtle visual effects too. So, all that has to be put together. So from the previs until ultimately what it ended up was very, very different. And that's because of what they went out and shot. And so what you ended up with, you used to put together. And then after that fact, if it's lacking in any way anywhere, then we use the resource of visual effects to help us out. So that's one of the scenes that, and I have to tell you, the other part of the difficult part of it was all those monitors. Oh my God. When you first get into the Batcave,
Mm-hmm.
and you see all those monitors, well, they didn't exist in the shoot. So they shot some temp version of that inside the monitor so that there would be some light playing on our actors' faces, but all that had to be cut in after the fact. And so that had to play against our characters, Bruce Wayne and Alfred, in that scene. And we have news footage playing in the background. We have that what looks like it's the contact lens point of view. So we have that playing in the other monitors. So we have all that playing, and that's true for anything and any of those ones that have monitors in it. So that was a big deal.
So you're kind of speaking on a lot of the VFX shots, and I was kind of wondering, with a movie like this, and I guess maybe to more of an extent the Planet of the Apes movies, when visual effects are such a big component of what you're editing, what's the kind of like logistical process for that? Like, are you just editing the raw footage that they send you first and then sending that out to the VFX houses, or is there like a process that we don't know about?
That's basically it. So I would say that when you're doing a visual effects picture, the visual effects houses have budgeted a certain time and a certain amount of money so that there are what we call keystone shots, which is what does Gotham look like with all those signs in the square, and what's that look like? So, when we get the shot of what we call the drifter riding his motorcycle back, we pick that shot. It's a single shot. We ship that off to the visual effects house, the visual effects department, and they then begin to work on that shot because it's probably going to exist in that form, whether it's slightly shorter. So we try to make it a little longer than usual, than what we think. So, but you never know if there might be something interesting that the visual effects department adds in there. But so that's kind of where you start. You start with shots that you pretty sure are going to be in the picture. And then the other pieces, let's say the Batmobile chase, there's certain parts of that that's going to be there. That shot's going to be there too in some form or fashion. Or there's shots in there that we need to work on this quick because we're talking about concept here. When this truck turns on its side and hits the overpass, what is that exactly going to look like? And how does that actually happen? Because they actually shot practical. They actually shot a version of a semi tilting to the side, but it just never looked right. And plus, you're not going to drive that into an overpass. So all of that, how do you envision that? So we had to put that together, and in our mind, just think how long that's going to take. And that's how you proceed, and you pass that off to the visual effects house, and they begin to work on it. And once we get different versions, then we begin to modify it again and again. So that's basically how visual effects happens. I mean, as far as some of the monitors are concerned, I mean, obviously that's mostly that's based on what our characters are doing within the context of the scene and what's playing in the monitor. So, that becomes a little bit more of a background, a subliminal thing that's playing against what Bruce Wayne is seeing and what he's doing. And then after he leaves, what Alfred thinks about what just happened and what Batman saw that night. So those are the kind of things where that helps further the story, but it doesn't dictate the actual length or pace of it. It's more about how our characters, the main characters, are interacting with those particular monitors.
So with an original score, as this film has, how are the editors and the composer Michael Giacchino, like how are you guys collaborating to figure out what goes where and why and how?
Yeah, we had a real bonus on this, and it's so rare. Michael Giacchino wrote a suite for a Batman, so the Batman theme, and he had sent it to Matt Reeves, and he shared it with me. It's an amazing piece, but
It's crazy.
He said what he's going to do before we even started principal photography. Michael Giacchino went into Abbey Road and recorded for a whole day. So he recorded the Bruce Wayne theme, he recorded the Batman theme, he recorded the Selina Kyle scene theme. So there was certain themes that he recorded already. So we didn't have to, we being myself or the music editor, didn't have to go and scramble and try to find something that could stand in for the Batman theme. Now, how are you going to do that without, that's impossible without calling upon some...
So did you not use temp music?
Well, what happened was after we did, but not in the same way we would have if we didn't have all these particular themes, because we had, when I say we have the Bruce Wayne theme, we had 3-4 different versions of it. The Batman theme, we had like 3 different versions of it. And so, but not only that, they gave it to me broken down into different elements. We had the synth track, we had the harp, we had the horns, we had the percussion. So I had all that separated, so that if I went into a scene and I wanted a piece of music, I could just play the synth track, or I could just play the harp. And in a lot of cases, that's the indication that was put in there for the temp. And ultimately, it was a template for the final score. We have a great music editor, Paul Appergren, who's worked on the 8 movies too. So he came on once we went back to the studio, sometime around that time. So at that point, he then took these Michael Giacchino's music, and then he would craft it so that there's other temp music, and you don't really know that it's temp music, because he gets all the different breakdown of all these different temp music from all these different movies too. So he's able to manufacture different score for us in different places. So it's a real luxury to have that, to have your theme. I've never actually had that. Actually, on Dawn, he did write a whole suite, but we could only use so much of it. It wasn't broken down and recorded quite like the themes for Bruce Wayne, Batman, and Selina in this movie. So that was a real luxury.
This is a movie with kind of a complex plot. Were there sequences or scenes that you found changed or were pared down very significantly from script to screen, or just to simplify so the audience, can understand?
There were a few, and I think that possibly all the scenes were trimmed in some way with a line here or there that felt like maybe it was repetitious, but the script as it was laid out kind of goes scene to scene to scene, because it's a detective story, so you couldn't really kind of exercise big chunks of it. But but there were scenes that were deleted. I mean, there's a scene where after Batman gets his second card from the Riddler, he goes and sees somebody else, unmentioned at the moment, and to say, look, this is what's going on. What's your thoughts? The idea is that here's Batman, and he goes, instead of taking his own initiative, he goes and sees somebody else for information. So in losing that scene, he goes straight from getting the card from the Riddler to taking action, which he then has Selina go into the club, because that's where he can find information. So he's taken initiative, and that works well. So it's those kind of things that are trimmed down. I think the other areas possibly is when Batman's racing back to, he knows that something's about to happen at the Wayne tower, and Alfred is looking at, yes, right. He's looking at this this letter that's addressed to Bruce Wayne. So in that there was abbreviation after the fact, the explosion of him in the hospital there, and also with the detective, but there's it all, in trimming that up, it all plays as a piece instead of these separate scenes that you go from A, B, C, D. So I think that gave it a little momentum through there, that they play it all as of a piece, because we're with Batman. It's a very subjective setup for our character. We're seeing it through his eyes.
So I'm sure some of these cuts were inspired by some of the test screenings. And how, after the test screenings, does the opinions of the general public get back to you? Or do they just write down on little pieces of paper and then someone sums it up and then sends you an email about what you have to change?
That's roughly it, So, but this particular movie, more so than other ones, is that it was more of a point. What the audience was responding to a lot of times was, because there's so many characters in it, is the point of clarification of the characters. So that's kind of what we took away from. This isn't clear. An example is originally the Falcone. It's like Genovese or Genovese. You could pronounce it either way. And so through the course of shooting the movie, his name was Falcone originally.
I almost corrected you and said you mean Carmine
Right.
Falcone.
Right. So it's Carmine Falcone, but we also had Maroni. So we got Falcone and Maroni. So you go, well, and so we screened it, and I think it was one of Matt's writer friends. He goes, I don't know, because Maroni never really appears on screen. I mean, he's in the back there in a news clip, but you never get a sense of who's Maroni. I mean, at the moment, even now, he's kind of like, Maroni? Who's he? Oh, he's the other guy. So when you have Maroni and now Falcone, then you go, oh, I have no idea what the hell's going on here. So there's an example where we had the visual effects change the lips on them. Wow. So that he would, because we could actually cut the Falcone knee, we could cut the knee off, or sometimes if we had to, we would get a ADR but for the most part, we were pretty successful in cutting off the knee off the Falcone. But it was a matter of losing that last little bit of movement on the lips, and visual effects department helped us out with that. So that was pretty amazing. So it became Falcone and Maroni. So that's the point of clarification. So I think showing it to an audience, we get that. So that so some of the other points was I guess Kenzie. So do we know who Kenzie is? So we manufactured a little scene that tells us more of who he is. So when Selina's going to the club downstairs, that Batman actually sees him, and he reminds us that that's the guy that he threw the bat at. I broke his nose. That guy. So we had to, and then we added a line for Selina when she comes and sees Batman on the top of the building where the bat signal is, and so she again realized that dickbag Kenzie, right?
Right.
So those are kind of things that help with the clarification of the characters.
So you kind of brought up the sound department, and I was wondering, how in conjunction with them are you working? Because it's such a sound-heavy movie,
yes.
And sound design is so important to it.
For sure.
So what kind of work do you do with them?
Well, when we start the movie, we're kind of on our own, because it's difficult to carry a sound department through the entire production. So, with our sound effects library, we're trying to just temp in some things. I know the Batmobile was impossible to do because it's such a distinctive thing, but we tried just to give us an idea, just so that when we showed the picture to Matt, that we had something there. because those are the kind of scenes where there's no sound at all.
Out of curiosity, what did you use?
Well, our sound designer, Will Files, we originally used something like a charger, because that's kind of the body is based on something like that. So, like a big honking V8 engine. So that's what we started with. But Will Files, the sound designer, he went even further, and he recorded different things. And I can't remember all the engines and different things, but it's a combination of things. So when we start, we're just all kind of on our own, but on a production this size, we're fortunate enough to be able to bring them on just before the end of principal photography, because I said, look, before Matt sees this, we're going to need some sound. So I work in 5.1, and I can do that because the sound effects department, they give me the sound in 5.1. So, you're talking about sound design. I had conversations with them. What does Gotham sound like? Because we're on the top of the building. I could just put in like traffic by and stuff like that, but what is that? That doesn't give you a sense of what Gotham is, and it's always raining. So
it's the city from Seven,
right. So, but what does that sound like? It's a light rain. It's a heavy rain. It's a rain on the rooftop. It's a rain on the train platform, say. So there's all this sound design that has to happen. So I'm talking to the sound department. I give them scenes as soon as I can, so that they can begin to temp in some of this sound for me, and they give it back to me in 5.1. Well, I have mono tracks, I have stereo tracks, but I also have the 5.1 tracks from them. And so then in the app, then I mix it all down with the music and also. So that's kind of where our conversations with the sound designers are concerned. So it's Will Files and Doug Murray, who worked on the 8 movies with us too. So I've worked with them before, and so there's a certain rapport that we have, and that's great.
So another element that I think was made through the sound, and that I wasn't fully expecting, is I was genuinely scared twice during this movie through little jump scares.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to know if you can guess what the 2 times are. And if you can, I'll just tell you. But I'm sure you've spent a lot of time with this movie.
I would think. I would think one is in the orphanage when the guy jumps out.
You're
one
correct.
for 2.
Yes.
And I would think it's probably in the beginning when the mayor walks off and
when he steps aside and the Riddler's right behind him.
That's right.
Sir,
yeah.
you're 100% correct.
I was right next to Trent when that happened, and he jumped like a little child. It was beautiful. It was wonderful.
I'm a relatively sturdy guy, and I guess I wasn't going into Batman particularly ready to be jump scared. But it was really pleasant. It was nice to be caught off guard like that.
There's a couple of interesting things about those 2 things, and so let's like the orphanage, for example. So when I mix the picture, and so now we're on preview day, and I do what's called a run through. So we go through there, and we want to make sure that we run the picture. I watch the entire picture in the morning to make sure that everything is right. Everything's in sync, and the picture looks the way it's supposed to look. So I come back, and Matt didn't watch the movie, and he says, "So what you think?" I go, there's one area where it just needs something else. It's the orphanage when the guy comes out. It wasn't scary, and so what we did was we have that stinger, that thing, and so it was after that I just added that one sound effect. It was actually music. It was a music hit. I just added that, and from then on, that was in, because it's a jump scare, and you needed that just to hit it really hard.
I'm so glad that you had something to do with that, because I was about to mention that exact thing. Whereas in jump scares, when you watch like The Conjuring or whatever, most of the time there's like a music track and it's droning, and you can feel it about to like come like this, and you know that the jump is gonna correspond to that. But yours, the music cue came after, and so while I was like this, then a wave of sound came over me. You know.
That's funny. You know, the other thing too was we're talking about the mayor, and when he walks away, and so there I put the sting of the music. You know, it's kind of like a percussion hit, and when he walks away, and the music supervisor was the one that brought it up. He goes, you know, I think your music hit on the reveal of the Riddler is early. I go, what are you talking about? It happens right as he walks away. But if you revisit that when you go and see it again, you notice that it happens later. You walk away, you discover it, and they go, oh my God, and then the music hits, right? Because it
takes your brain a second.
That's right. Because I had it as soon as you could see him, I could see him, because
you're seeing it frame by frame.
Right, exactly. You have to allow the audience to absorb it. What the hell? Ah, you know. So that's the point. So that, you know, that was two different versions of a hit that I'm glad it worked for you.
Trent, I'm ready to move into some the Batman related questions, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
So you've worked with another director that has made his own version of Batman, Zack Snyder.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked on a few films with him. You mentioned Dawn of the Dead. You worked on 300 and Watchmen. And we were just wondering what he's like, because he's a visionary in his own right. Yeah,
I love Zach. I mean, he's very collaborative. He's quite different in the cutting room than Matt is. He'll come in, he'll see something, and he'll give his thoughts, and I'll address him in that sense. But he's very, very visual. When I first met him on Dawn of the Dead, and that was his first feature, and I'm looking at these beautiful shots of cigarettes dropping on the floor and sparks flying up in the air, but I'm thinking, yeah, but it's too long. But that's the glimpses of what he is visually, and so I believe that I was brought in just to make sure that those things are in there, but that the narrative is there, and all the scares and all the humor that was in there too. And then when 300 was in the wind, I said I have to do that, because it's first of all, I don't know if you guys grew up on the Battle of Thermopylae, but it's one of those things in books and history.
It's awesome.
Yeah, right. 300 holding off tens of thousands of the enemy at the gates. It's like it's an amazing story. So I said I have to do that. I have to. Some way I got to get in there. And I think he was going to work with the other editor again, and I somehow got in there and kind of finagled my way into working with him, and you could see that was totally visual, because we had like King Leonidas sitting on a rock with a half a spear, and in this stage where you go, is this ceiling high enough? Are we going to see? But he could see it. He could see all that, because I said, I'm not so sure about this. But he could see it, and the whole lighting of it, the whole idea of, because he comes from commercials and music videos, mostly commercials. And so that whole ramping of action that, he's done Gatorade commercials. And if you revisit those early ones, that's exactly what he was doing, so that he would shoot with high-speed cameras, and then they would ramp them down to action. So on 300, that's kind of what happened. And every shot that he shot that was high speed, that needed to be ramped in some way. I mean, there are so many ways to go. And I thought, oh my God, if we don't see eye to eye on this ramping, I mean, each shot is like, it's like editing a scene. You could go so many different ways. And if I ramp this and he doesn't see the same way I do, is where the impact moment is and where we need to slow it down, then this is going to take a long time. But as it is, he's so collaborative in that most of it, like, hey, this is great, or let's make an adjustment here and there. But so he's quite different than say Matt Reeves in that sense of working, for sure.
Did you edit the "This Is Sparta" bit? Was that?
Oh yeah.
Was it crazy to see that like blow up the way it did?
Oh yeah. You're talking about when he kicks him into the well?
Yeah.
See, it's interesting because I had ramped that scene so that he kicks him, and as he's falling, there's a certain speed to it, So in the Avid, we have this time warp, and like I said, you could do it so many different ways, but I had it in a certain way that you just caught a glimpse of him when he's falling. So, but when I gave it to the visual effects people, and they gave it back to us, to go, wait, no, because they had ramped it a different way. You go, no, you have to fall on this frame. I don't care what you have to do, but there's certain frames you have to have, because it's like, I liken it to what you would see in a graphic novel. That's the frame, right? So if he's falling, that's the frame you would have in like the square of the graphic novel. So, but yeah, that for sure, that was ramped, and that's how it exists in the movie, for sure.
Trent, are you dying to ask?
Yeah, so speaking of auteur directors that you work with, we alluded to earlier that the Batman takes place in Seven City, and you were the assistant or an additional editor on David Fincher's Seven. Is this true?
I was a second editor on that. Richard Francis Bruce, who was cutting the movie, and he was cutting on film, by the way. So at that point, I was working on an Avid already, and so they being Richard and David Fincher, wanted me to come in and put certain scenes together on the Avid, because it's so much easier to visualize or to get a result, and then pass it off to the visual effects house. And one of them is when Morgan Freeman's in the library, and there's a whole series of dissolve. So
I love that scene,
right? So that's one of the things that if you were to do it on film, you would have to say, okay, I'm going to start the dissolve here, I'm going to go out here, and you pass it off to the lab, and it comes back, and you go, well, that doesn't look right, and you have to do it again. But in the Avid, you can just you do it, and then you can see it, and we can all agree that's what it should be, and then you would take the counts off the numbers off the picture and send it off to the lab. So that was my capacity. I worked on that. I was lucky enough to be a part of that, and I'd say Richard Francis Bruce deserves all the credit for that, because I came in as a second editor, and I made some contribution, but I would say Richard Francis Bruce, he's the man on that.
I've listened to his commentary track on the 7 DVD, Richard Francis Bruce.
Yes, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's like speaking about 7 is, when they hadn't shot the end scene yet, and so at the end of principal photography, I believe the studio and the producers are getting a little, they were not sure that that's how they want that movie to end, and so they were getting cold feet. And Fincher, to his credit, said, "Look, if you want to fuck this movie up, you can do it yourself. I'm not doing it." So he got what he wanted, and he stuck.
I think Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman threatened to walk off.
Yeah, David Fincher famously said, "If this movie is nothing else, I want, like, 50 years from now, someone to say, oh, they won't be able to remember the name, and they'll say the Head in the Box movie." That's what the movie is.
That's right.
But
That's right.
I mean, famously, there was the epilogue was added after the test screening of 7. They brought up the lights prematurely, right after the cut to black. Is originally, spoilers for 7. Brad Pitt shoots a certain someone, and then it cuts to black.
Yes.
And then people panicked, and then they added the Morgan Freeman epilogue.
Yeah. So you know more about it than I do.
Barely. You worked on it. So.
Trent, should I ask? Is it time?
Wait, time for the Big Kahuna final question?
Ooh.
I think it's time. So
Okay.
try not to stay too frightened, but the Big Kahuna final question is just, what's the last great, not good, great movie you watched? And for the purposes of our conversation, we're going to exclude The Batman, which is, for everyone listening,
It's
a great movie.
A great movie. Not good, great.
Wow. Okay.
And it could be a rewatch or a new release. It doesn't have to be new.
I haven't seen, well, this season anyways, I can't say they're great movies. That's all good movies, but great movie. Wow. I'm going to go see the re-release of The Godfather. How's that?
Yeah,
Nice.
The
That's
50th?
yeah.
Yeah, it's coming. I think it's going to be playing at the Academy Museum on the 17th. So I got to see. I mean, honestly, it's one of my favorite movies, and we can only aspire to be anything close to that.
I haven't been to the Academy Museum yet. Have you? I know it just opened recently.
I have.
Is it awesome?
It's pretty awesome, because I'm a member of it and support it. I mean, I think for film fans, it's awesome. I mean, they have a floor dedicated to different filmmakers and iconic filmmakers and iconic people. That they have a little section with Bruce Lee. They have a section with a black filmmaker who I can't remember his name right now, but very early on in, I guess it was like the 20s or the 30s. So so they pay tribute to and when they play these clips too, you can't help but be inspired again. You look at these movies that, for me, inspired me all through my entire career, and I'm looking at it, and really, it's like I'm getting choked up. It's like when they play the theme from the Blade Runner, I just, oh my God, it's like, the final scene where Rutger Hauer dies is like the only lines that I've ever tried to memorize.
Tears and
Oh, exactly. Oh my God. So it's, that's the part of the Academy Museum. I think for any film lover, they're going to go there and go, oh yeah, I remember that. But it captures, so many different directors, so many different aspects of filmmaking. And so it's inspiring, and even from my standpoint, so that I go back to work and I'm inspired, and I try to make movies that are anywhere close to those particular movies that I've talked about. Yeah. I'm trying to avoid your question.
Well, we'll take The Godfather. I think that's a fair.
Are they changing it in the re-release? Is there like 30 seconds of new footage or something?
No, from what I understand, they're going in, and what Coppola did was he's restoring it to its original release glory as far as the look of it and the sound. So he's gone back in there, and so hopefully the blacks are totally black and it's punchy where it needs to be. I don't think punchy is the way to describe The Godfather, but like there's some reds in there that you want to poke through the blacks and things like that. So I would imagine that's what he was after. But I read a little bit about it. I don't think he's added anything, because he says those versions are out there already. The different versions of The Godfather, the whole. He had one was it takes it chronologically and different things like that. So I don't think that was his intention. I think this is just to restore it to what it was when on the day of release is what I heard.
Awesome. Trent, you want to wrap us up?
Sure. Thanks again to William Hoy. What a wonderful interview. He's worked on such films as Dances with Wolves, Watchmen, War for the Planet of the Apes, and he's also just edited Matt Reeves' The Batman, which opens this weekend, and you should go see it at your local theater. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. Your time.
Thank you, Trent. Thank you, Parth. And thank you guys for being fans, and thank you for getting out there and going to see the movie. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We'll go see The Batman again.
Okay,
I'm
good.
seeing this movie 3 times in theaters,
Yeah.
at least.
All right. I love it.
All right.
Hey, Parth.
Hey,
Remember,
buddy.
we host this podcast together, no?
That's what I've heard.
That interview was pretty cool, though.
I thought it was pretty fucking awesome. How about you?
I enjoyed myself. We asked, he answered. Need I say more?
Yeah, should we talk about the URL?
Yeah, this was something of a recent discovery. I guess we should go back to when we saw the movie in theaters, and I'd say about 5 seconds after the credits started rolling, I leaned over to you and I said, "Is there a post-credit scene?" And you said, "No." And so
I wasn't wrong. I wasn't
Yeah,
wrong. There is
you're
no
not wrong.
post-credits.
You're not wrong. But we walked out of the theater very confidently, and we looked back at the full jam-packed theater, and we were like, "Look at these idiots." And then what happened?
Then we interviewed William Hoy. We finished our interview, and then we were talking off screen, and he said, again, this is not really a spoiler, but
No, I would say it's just a suggestion to stick around.
At the very end of the movie, there is a website that takes you to a scene that I believe was deleted.
It apparently, if you solve some encrypted riddles, perhaps from the Riddler that he left for you to decipher. But Parth and I were just looking at him, and it's not easy.
It's not like 100% working for us, but we're also known to be dumb. So.
If I think friend of the show Jackson Clark were here, he would say that this is a simple substitution code, and I'm sure that there are clues around. But we aren't detectives or the world's greatest detective. If Batman were here, this would be much easier.
If only we had Robert Pattinson over here.
I made a comment as we left the theater that Batman solved the riddles incredibly fast, but
he did.
He's the world's greatest detective.
But yeah, this is it. Thank you so much to William Hoy. Thank you to his agent, who I sent the initial email to.
William Hoy's agent. Ow, ow.
Thanks to everybody that made this happen. Go watch the movie. It's a good movie.
It's really
We like
good.
it. You're going to hear... Oh, Trent, should we talk about what's happening next week?
I was going to say, I think we're going to discuss this film next week.
That is how our show works.
Who do you think we'll have on a guest to discuss it with us? Because I think we might.
We've been saying tale of who we saw this with, which is Jackson Clark, and I think there's a good chance that if you tune into the discussion next week that he may show up.
I think that there is a good probability of that, yeah.
Nice.
It's not guaranteed. Something could happen. He could break his arm, break his leg, break his kneecaps, have a head injury, or he'll be on the show and we'll have a great discussion.
Yeah, I mean, one of those options will happen, you know?
Yep. Well, Parth, I've had enough. Haven't you?
This is going to be a long episode for the people at home, I think.
Is it? The interview was less than an hour long.
It was 55 minutes.
All right, guys, if you stuck with us for the full hour, we appreciate your time.
Very
With that being said, since you've come this far, rate us on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify. Give us 5 stars. We want
give us a review.
We want that sponsorship, BB. We want to make big dollar bills. We want to be rich and famous, and we want Coca-Cola to sponsor us. So we need your help.
But I think that is it for now. Join us next week for our discussion of the movie, and have a good one. After that, there'll be even more movies that we'll talk about, right? Yeah, it's gonna be fucking crazy, guys. Yep, it's gonna be. If you can't tell by our tones. After that, is that our Oscar special? We gotta look at the document, bro. You gotta go into the Google Drive folder. Is it though? I'm pretty sure the Oscars is sneaking up on us. Because the Oscars are on the 27th, and our episode is on the 20th. Oh, will we even make it to the Oscars? We'll make it. All right, goodbye, Parth. The episode's ending now. My skin.